Hi, my name is Emy Hardy. I'm the woodwind specialist at Virtuosity here in Boston. I'm also a music educator, and today I'm going to walk you through what I do with my students in their very first clarinet lesson. The first thing that we like to check when we get their instruments, usually they're brand new instruments, we look at the case and we find the label of the manufacturer. Usually the label of the company is directly on top of the lid of the case. And it's really important to check this because if you open the case upside down, all of the pieces of the clarinet can come falling out, which can damage the instrument. So on my case, I see that the label of the maker is on top of it. So I know that I'm good to unlatch the clasps and open the lid of the case up. And inside, you find the pieces of the instrument. Personally, what I do before I start putting the pieces of my instrument together is take my reed out to get it soaking in my mouth so that it's moist before I start playing. I'm not going to have my reed soaking in my mouth during this video, but normally that would be the beginning of my process. I always get my stand out first. That way, as it's being assembled, I have both hands free and I'm never placing my instrument on its side or especially not on its bell without any sort of support. I always assemble my instrument from the bottom up. So the first pieces of the instrument that I take out of the case are the bell and this joint here, the lower body joint. You can identify the lower body joint because there's a thumb rest on the back, and this is where you're going to rest your thumb on your right hand when you eventually play. Now that we've identified which part is the lower body joint and which part is the bell, find the part on the lower body joint that has this material around it. This is called the cork, and it's what helps seal the pieces of the instrument together. Newer instruments tend to have cork that sits high and is very dry, and it makes putting them into the socket of the bell particularly difficult. So before you assemble your instrument, identify the parts with cork on it. So right now I have the lower body joint, and find the cork grease that likely came with your instrument. It looks like chapstick, but don't put it on your lips. Now that we've lubricated the cork on the bottom joint with our cork grease, we can begin putting it inside of the bell socket. Identify the part of the lower body joint that has the least amount of metal on it as possible. I always take my hand and put the palm of my hand on that part that doesn't have any key work on it. And when I close my fingers around it, I make sure that my thumb stays straight and my fingers are touching the least amount of keys as possible. This is because if you wrap your fingers around parts that have, for example, metal rods or any other type of key work like these pads or these keys up here, pushing and twisting your instrument together could potentially turn these keys out of alignment, and that would need to be repaired. So now that I'm holding my lower body joint comfortably, I hold my bell down here underneath on the ring, and it gives me some leverage to gently push and twist my instrument back and forth so that the two pieces fit together comfortably. The next part of the instrument we need to identify inside of the case is the upper body joint. There are a couple of different parts on this than there are on the lower body joint. Probably the most noticeable being that both ends of this part have cork on them. Not only does the upper body joint have two tenons with cork on each one, it has a really important piece that bridges the upper joint and the lower joint together, coincidentally called the bridge key. This is the part of the instrument in the assembly process that is most likely to get damaged. Have your cork grease handy and apply it to the tenon with the bridge key. Similar to the way we held the lower joint when putting it into the bell, find the part on the upper joint with the least amount of key work on it as possible. Hold the lower joint the same way you did when putting it into the bell. And I like to support it on my tummy or on my leg if I'm sitting down. I put the tenon into the socket and identify the two pieces of the bridge key on the lower joint and on the upper joint. Using my stomach to support with small twists back and forth, I bring the two pieces together, and then I press these ring keys on the upper joint so that it lifts the bridge key on the top joint, and I rotate them so that they're aligned. A good way to tell that your bridge key is aligned is if you look at the back of the instrument and the register key with this hole is aligned with the thumb rest. The next piece we need to find in the case is the barrel. Make sure before you put your barrel on, you apply cork grease to the cork on the top tenon again. When putting your barrel on the instrument, hold the top part of the top joint and support it on your tummy or your leg, again, if you're sitting down. And again, using small twists back and forth, attach it to the top joint. And finally, the last piece that we put on top of the barrel is the mouthpiece. When attaching your mouthpiece, support the instrument and hold on to the barrel. If you're twisting something from the top, but holding down here at the bottom, your bridge key could potentially get misaligned. And again, a good way to make sure that your instrument is in alignment is by looking at the back of it, finding the hole called the window of the mouthpiece, lining up with the register key, the thumb hole on the back, and the thumb rest on the lower joint. Finally, you're ready to put the reed on the mouthpiece. Supporting the bell of the instrument on my leg, I lift the ligature up and away from the mouthpiece and find the heel of the reed, which is the thicker part, and slide that in first. The flat part of the reed should go against the flat part of the mouthpiece. Then I can wiggle my reed into position, bring the ligature down, make sure the tip of the reed is aligned with the tip of the mouthpiece, and finally, tighten the screws on my ligature. And then you're ready to play your clarinet. For any clarinet gear, questions, or repairs, come see us at Virtuosity Musical Instruments in Boston. Can I do my goblin bit? You don't have to keep it in.
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. Musical instruments.